all you.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of BSing Sports. Bill's here with me as always, and you might recognize the beautiful face of Jake Biasato from Talkin215. Unfortunately, we could not have his running partner on tonight, but hopefully he catches in. Maybe he gives us some feedback in the chat. We're going to lead off with a little bit of Bryce Harper MVP action. You know, his second of his career, following up from 2015, and then we're going to get straight into birds. You know, that's what we love to talk about. It's football season. I see Doc over there on Bill's. Bill, yeah, Doc. Okay.
Yep, Doc.
So let's just jump right into it. No BSing around today. Bryce Harper wins his second NL MVP award of his career. Guys, first off, did he deserve it? Jake, I'll start with you.
Yes, it was extremely deserving. I mean, I haven't seen a second half of baseball like that in years. It just makes you think what would have happened if he didn't take that 97-mile-per-hour fastball to the face. It could have been even more impressive. But you heard we always end with like a little final thought on almost all of our episodes, and you've heard for the past months Joey's has been, and mine's been off and on. It's been, Bryce Harper NL MVP, and it's just been something we've been echoing for months now, and it was extremely deserving.
Bill?
Yeah, I mean, MV3, you and I have been talking about this, Ryan, that especially last week's episode, we brought it up that we think it should have been even more of a blowout than it really even was. And that's nothing to say that Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis didn't do a great job this season, had good seasons. But as we pointed out, Tatis really fell off there at the end of the year. And Soto, after the Trey Turner and Max Scherzer trade, kind of fell off the planet a little bit too. His numbers were nice, but the production for him and what he was doing wasn't nearly at the scale that what Bryce Harper was bringing to the game every single day in and out. And as Jake pointed out, he doesn't take a 100-mile-an-hour fastball off the face, and he doesn't miss, 3.5 weeks of baseball. He probably hits 40 to 42 home runs and is even more impressive. So I was surprised that it wasn't more Harper, but absolutely 100% deserved. So congratulations for MV3.
So interesting little stat. You guys may know this. You guys may not have. I've actually brought this stat up on the show before. Bryce Harper is the 14th MVP in baseball history to not make the All-Star game, but yet win the MVP award. The last to do so, 2007, Jimmy Rollins. So, I mean, that just speaks volumes as to how great his second half really was. And I think that injury did derail him a little bit. He was off to a very hot start to the season anyway before he ended up taking that fastball to the face. So with that being said, does not being an all-star actually help his case more than it hurts it? Bill?
So, I mean, and we saw this. We don't really have to talk about the NL Cy Young and how we were surprised that Wheeler only lost by 10 votes to Corbin Burns, which was a huge surprise to us anyway.
Yeah, I thought he was taking third for sure.
I also was in he's taking third vote. I mean, that face that you're making, Jake, is wonderful and everything. However, let me see if I can fix this camera angle real quick. I'm not sure I like this one. Hang on. No, I don't like that one either. Never mind. But after Zach Wheeler goes to the All-Star game, after the All-Star game, he was not the same pitcher that he was prior to. His ERA kind of gets up. I think he finished the season with, a 3.01 or a 3.02.
And that's before being in the low twos and the high ones, kind of fluctuating in between there. Second half definitely wasn't as good as the first.
Exactly. So I don't know if it helped Harper's case not going to the All-Star game, but what we do know is that him not going to the All-Star game didn't affect anything in the lineup.
Jake?
Well, I want to touch on Zach Wheeler really quick. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going to look it up real quick here, but I'm pretty sure he finished with a 2.74 ERA.
I don't know that it was that low.
2.79. So it wasn't
2.79? Yeah.
But 2.79. And if you look, his ERA through the first 7 innings was in the middle ones. But he was always asked to go deep because of our bullpen situation. He had more than 41 innings, or he had more than 40 innings than the closest competitor in the finalists for Cy Young. And obviously his strikeout numbers were higher, and that is correlated because his Ks per 9 weren't as high as Scherzer or Burns, but that's just because he played more innings and that's why he had more strikeouts. But still, if you look at Corbin Burns' ERA when facing the line, or the batting average when facing the lineup for the third time, it's in the middle to high 300s. You see that. That's why his numbers are so great, because he rarely went into that 8th and 9th inning. and that's why his innings were less than Zach Wheeler's. Zach Wheeler was asked a lot more of, and yeah, he had a few instances where it was more of a game in, game out basis, never really a significant stretch of time where he wasn't performing. But it would just be kind of a game here, a game there. And it was very rare where you'd see it within the first 5 innings where you're like, oh, we got to get Wheeler out of there. There was a few times where he gave up 3 runs in the third and ended up, had 60 pitches through 3, ended up getting pulled after 7 with, 89 pitches, and it just was extremely economical from then on.
Yeah, I noticed that a little bit after the All-Star game. Is probably the 2 months directly after the All-Star game that seemed to happen a little bit more frequently than it did in the first half. And even, the last month of the season, he wasn't doing it as much. But
I thought it was going to be close, but I had him winning it. I did. It's just
okay.
Yeah. The skewed numbers, I feel as though that it would have been taken into account that if you just take away his 8th and 9th inning ERA, which you can't. But I figured it would be in the back of their mind that he was asked way more of than the other 2 finalists and produced at the same, if not better levels in most situations.
I mean, you make a great case, and that's probably why it was closer than Ryan and I thought it was going to be last week. I'm not saying he wasn't deserving of being a finalist in any means, because he definitely was. Same thing with Harper. What Wheeler did for the pitching, what Wheeler did for the Phillies pitching staff was outstanding. Nola was supposed to be the ace, and he comes out and he drops an eggshell the entire season. And then Wheeler really picked up the slack there. I mean, there are obviously other additions that helped. Kyle Gibson came in and helped him, and we get that. Ranger Suarez came out of nowhere, light on the world. So just like Harper carrying the lineup and the team, almost willing them to the playoffs, Wheeler did the same thing on the hill, and I'm not discrediting anything that Zach Wheeler did. We just thought the sample size that Scherzer and Corbin Burns had was significantly better in that aspect than Wheeler's. But again, 10 votes. I mean, he was that close.
Yeah.
Oh, very.
But, yeah. So you never touched on Harper. Do you think it helped or hurt his case for MVP? Because when you don't make the All-Star game, it means you're not a good enough first half, and then it just speaks volumes to how good his second half was, that he was even an MVP finalist, let alone winning the award.
It's tough. I would say in a lot of people's, just like the average baseball fan's mind, it might. And I just think the voters kind of don't really look too much into that. I could be way off. It could play extremely in their minds to really show, like you said, just to echo what you said, that his second half was that incredible. I have a feeling that it didn't play a ton into it, but I don't know. This is kind of just a big roundabout answer, so maybe.
Well, I guess we'll really never know, but congratulations to Bryce. Congratulations to Zach for being a runner-up. Hopefully they can replicate that next season. Maybe get a little bit of help for both of those guys, Romuto and Nola. Let's start waking up over there and performing the way that we should. Moving on to the Eagles. Biggest news out there. I saw that you guys posted on Twitter as well as we did. Avonte Maddox signed a 3-year, $22.5 million deal. 13 million guaranteed, somewhere in that neighborhood. Jake, why don't you go ahead and give me your thoughts on the deal? I know you posted on Twitter, but our fans need to hear.
Well, I'm hoping Joe is tuned in, because I'm basically just going to repeat verbatim what he's been saying, because I agree step with him. Slot corner is a position that is, in a lot of casual fans' mind, extremely underrated. It's something that has become more and more important game in and game out. You have guys like Keenan Allen, CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Justin Jefferson, even DK Metcalf occasionally. They're lining up more and more in the slot. Then you got
Adams.
Devontae Adams. Yeah, exactly. You got new guys like Kyle Pitts lining up pretty heavily in the slot now. And it just shows how important having that lockdown slot corner would be, because outside corners, they have the benefit. Their best friend is the sideline. That's a second defender. In the slot, they can go all kinds of different crazy directions. And Avonte Maddox, recent, has been getting the recognition that he deserves, because we said on our podcast, he's the number 1 slot corner in the NFL at this moment, or at least he's playing as that. And we also talked about, you get paid for what you're going to do, not what you have done. And so and I still feel as though we got a very friendly deal there. I still feel as though he could have gotten more if he went out to the open market. So we said 2 days before and then the day before that he got the contract, because we did 3 episodes in 3 days, that we were like, Avonte Maddox and Dallas Goedert need to get a contract. Dallas Goedert got his. Right when we said that, we said, you know what? I bet the only other contract that's going to happen this during the season is Avonte Maddox, and the next day that happens. And I'm very happy about both of them.
Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Jake here that it's a very team-friendly contract. I mean, 13.3 guaranteed and the 22.5 total is a very team-friendly contract. I don't know about him being the best slot corner in football right now. However, he is playing very well. I think in years past, Jim Schwartz wasn't really utilizing him to the best of his ability. And I'm not saying John Gannon's doing a great job, kind of leaving him he and the other corners out.
Player he's using, right.
Ryan and I have discussed this. Those outside guys, Steven Nelson, Darius Slay, they're really, really good lockdown man corners. So whatever John Gannon's been doing with Avonte Maddox has worked this season through what is it, 12 games now, or 6 games? I don't know, however many games we played, has really seemed to work. So I mean, it's a deserving contract for Avonte Maddox. I'm not sure he would have gotten a lot more somewhere else, but I'm not negative on the contract. I'm not negative on the signing, especially since Steven Nelson, I think, is only on a 1-year deal, right? Am I right there?
Yeah, it's 1 year, $3 million.
So it's important to lock down corners that are familiar with, hopefully, the system moving forward if Gannon can get his stuff right. So, yeah, in that aspect of it, in that scenario, yeah, I think it's a good signing for the Birds.
I go back and forth on it. First off, Avonte Maddox is in his 4th year, has never played 16 games, has never played more than 13. So injury history is a bit of a concern. Secondly, last year, it may have been because of injury or for whatever reason. He was terrible. He was actually really bad, probably the worst cornerback on the roster. And that leads me to my next question, and you guys actually kind of touched on it almost, that John Gannon, that's probably the only guy he's utilizing right. However, if he does not get his stuff together and we see a different defensive coordinator next year, how is his contract potentially going to look with Avonte Maddox being so up and down in another system that isn't John Gannon's?
And I agree with you there. That's kind of sort of why I took my long answer to get to, yeah, I guess it's a good signing for the Birds, is we don't know what the defense holds after this season. If Gannon doesn't get it right. Look, the Eagles have scored less than 21 points one time this season, and they're, what are they, 5-6? 4-6?
Yeah, 4-6.
That's a problem. That's a defensive problem right there. Your team is averaging 21 plus points a game, and you're losing a majority of them. Something's got to give for the defensive side of the football.
Jake?
No, 100%. The defense, I mean, you talk to anybody, they'll all pretty much tell you that the defense is the reason that we're losing most of these games. I mean, I was at the Chargers game, and offensively, it was one of Nick Sirianni's best called game plans. He was mixing it up, a lot of pre-snap motion, playing from under center a lot more, did a lot of really positive things. And we were encouraged, obviously, after the Lions game to see Jonathan Gannon bringing more pressure, playing a lot of press man coverage, doing a lot of different things. We talked about, how on one play they even had one side of the field doing press man and the other side of the field doing basically like a cover zone in the same play. Like it was impressive. And then went to the very next week and he was afraid of Justin Herbert, was afraid of Keenan Allen, was afraid of Mike Williams, and said, we're going right back into the cover 2 deep shell. We're going to allow whatever they want over the middle, whatever they want on the comebacks to the outside, but we're not going to get beat deep. And they only had the one deep play, so that's great, but they still won the game.
Yeah, in my opinion, that whole game was the personification of like the Eagles season. Nick Sirianni learned, hey, I should probably run the ball, and we're going to get to that topic here in a second. So they run the heck out of the ball against a team that's really bad against the run. 2 + 2 = 4. They control the time of possession. They control the clock until the final 6 minutes of the game, and the defense cannot get off the field. There has to be a stop there. I mean, at some point, even on the last drive of the game, you got to look and see that your off-man coverage or your deep zones are just not working because Justin Herbert is eating you alive. I mean, Herbert's a very good quarterback, and they don't necessarily, outside of maybe Guyton and Josh Palmer, they don't have a ton of speed on the outside. They live off of good route running and, Herbert hitting his guys and timing routes. That's the way that they succeed. You would think they'd want to do anything to throw those guys off of those routes, but they just didn't. He let him have whatever he wanted, just like you said, and that was not a recipe for success. It's a recipe to give up the most 80% completion, games in NFL history, which I'm sure if we haven't done yet, we're pretty close to. So,
yeah, you and I talk about this all the time, especially in our text message group there, Ryan, how it's 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2, and John Gannon's got his corners playing 8 yards off the football. That drives me. I scream at the TV every single game when
another thing that irritates the hell out of me, and he said this to the media, is Darius, your best cornerback shouldn't always follow their best wide receiver. Like, what? Somebody want to explain that to me? Jake, do you have a different take on that? Maybe you can help me see a different light there.
No, I'm with you for the most part, but there are situations where you kind of just play a certain side of the field that they tend to have better matchups with. You try. It's more of just a scheme that you try and do, but when you have no kind of defensive identity, like we do not have, it doesn't make sense. Like that's not a valid excuse. You can't say, oh, well, our scheme was to leave him on the left side of the field and we're going to be doing all these other things to alleviate the fact that we have a mismatch with Steven Nelson, with even we saw against the Chiefs where we had stinking a linebacker lined up on Tyreek Hill. Like, so there's no excuse for it. You in what we're running right now, you really should have Darius Slay shadow the number 1 wide receiver. So no, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
The only scenario where I could say that makes sense in that kind of a statement is if Darius Slay is like really, really poor on the right side of the ball.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys have seen something that I haven't seen, but Darius Slay has been good wherever you let him play because he's Darius Slay.
Leave him in man and he'll win.
Exactly. So the comment was dumb. And there's really no way around it. I wonder if he could go back and take it back, sort of like Quarterback Factory. But it was just a dumb comment.
Yeah. To touch real quick on what you were talking about with the time of possession up until those last 6 minutes. Again, Joey's going to love me because this is something that he's echoed a number of times. Jim Schwartz, nobody loved him as a defensive coordinator, but in the Super Bowl, on that drive where we got the strip sack with the Brandon Graham and recovered the ball, there's audio of Jim Schwartz going to Doug Peterson saying, I'm going to be going after the quarterback here. I'm either going to get you the ball or they're going to score and we're going to have the ball with we're going to have the last possession and the opportunity to win. But I remember that. Those are the two options. We're either going to get the ball back for you or they're going to score and you're going to get the ball for the final possession.
That's exactly what should have happened against the Chargers.
I'm sitting there with 6 minutes left and I'm like, okay, this has been terrible all game long, but he's got to in his head realize we send everyone, and if they score on the first play, that's not the ball. That's not the worst outcome. The worst outcome is what happened. The worst outcome is a 6.5 minute drive resulting in a chip shot field goal for the win. So send the house every play.
And as I've mentioned before, Justin Herbert is very good against the blitz. However, they didn't really do it all game, so you might have even thrown off his timing. Maybe that's why the game plan was to not blitz, because Herbert's so good against it. Well, guess what? He's also good not against it too, in case you didn't watch all of that game. I totally agree in that specific scenario. You're at home, a very winnable game. Actually, I remember when we had you on for Eagles preseason, I said they could go 10-7. And I said, because the home schedule is much weaker than the road schedule is. And you brought up this specific game. I said, this was a very winnable game if they played it right, and they should have won this game. But that just defensive, and you can sit there and blame players. You can blame the fact that Cox is invisible. You can blame the fact that Steven Nelson gets picked on. You can blame the fact that our linebackers outside of TJ Edwards, are pretty subpar for the most part. You can pick on individual players, but once you start naming out 4, 5, 6, 7 guys that just aren't performing, it's more like what's going on with the scheme here. And it's the wide 9, the lack of press, we're getting gashed on the ground too. A lot of people want to talk about how we're getting picked on in the air. We're terrible against the run this year, especially. At least Jim Schwartz had his defense ready to stop the run with subpar linebackers that we had. So something's got to give here. And it would not shock me if this was John Gannon's first and last year's defensive coordinator. Like I said, as a play caller, Sirianni seems to be figuring things out and learning, and John Gannon does not, which leads me into my next point. Miles Sanders is back this week. outside of week 1, he's been atrociously underutilized in this offense the way that he needs to be. What can we expect with Sanders back? Do we see maybe, Sirianni goes back to pass heavy? What do we think, guys? Jake?
Well, I don't believe we're going to see him go back to pass heavy. I think the days of Jalen Hurts consistently passing 40 pass attempts a game are few and far between. Obviously there's going to be situations where you're playing from behind and it's still within reach and you're going to be, trying to get back, and he might approach those 40 pass attempts. But I believe they know the game plan. I think they're going to at least go into the game with the idea of, okay, you got the best rush defense in the NFC. We have the best rush offense. Let's see who breaks first. And I think Miles Sanders, like Nick Sirianni said, I think he wasn't lying when he said, look, if he's healthy and ready to go, he's our starter. And a lot of the narrative around him is that his yards per attempt is skewed because he's a home run hitter. Like he might have 10 rushes for 20 yards, but then have that 11th rush go for 75 and a touchdown. So now he's averaging almost, 5 yards a carry. And that's why it says it. But he's averaging 4.9 yards a carry right now, and his season long is 24 yards. So it can't be that skewed. If your season long is 24 yards, that means, and your average is 4.9, it means you're probably having a lot of runs between, 4 and 10 yards. That's how averages work. You can't it's not like he has 18 24-yard rushes. That's a season long. And so he's still being very effective. He does do a lot more dancing than a Jordan Howard does, but Jordan Howard is a bull. And he's a great piece that I've been screaming that we need. If you listen to my draft episode, I was screaming for Ramondre Stevenson. He would have been a great piece, and you see what he's doing in New England right now. So I don't think it's going to go back to pass heavy. I do feel as though Nick Sirianni has done a lot better job of adjusting in game. So if we realize early on that it's not working, I believe he will adjust to trying to pass it more. And naturally, I think this is a obvious, not must win, but a game that they realize if they want to have any hope of making the playoffs, they must win. And so you'll see a little bit more of aggressive game plan, probably more than 20, 25 pass attempts like we've been seeing the past couple of weeks.
So here's the thing. It's since 2017, week 14 of 2017, the New Orleans Saints have given up 2 rushers that rush for over 100 yards in a game. 2 in the last 4 years, they've given up 2. First one is Miles Sanders, December 13th, 2020. He was 14 for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. The second person, Jalen Hurts, December 13th, 2020. 18 for 106 yards total. If they don't run the ball, there is a problem. Miles Sanders is, as Jake pointed out, 4.9 yards a carry. Jalen Hurts should throw the ball 12 times in this game. Unless somehow Trevor Siemian or Taysom Hill, whoever starts, gets the Saints out to a 21-point lead in the first quarter, Jalen Hurts shouldn't throw the ball more than 10 to 15 times total in this football game. He should run the ball 10 to 15 times. Sanders should run the ball 20 times. Howard should run the ball 12 to 13 times. But if Jalen Hurts throws the ball more than 15 times, the Eagles are not going to win this football game. And I've been pretty adamant about this the entire time with Jalen Hurts. And Ryan and I discussed this a little bit last night. We kind of got off topic and talked about Donovan McNabb a little bit, but we'll go back to just strictly the Jalen Hurts situation. Is if he has to throw the ball 30 to 40 times a game, the Eagles are going to lose. It's not a quarterback where he's dropping back and I'm like, oh yeah, he's going to make this pass. He's not. That's not the quarterback he is. He will make deliberate routes. He will stare his receivers down, and when the corners get the bite on that constantly, they're going to beat him. So again,
one receiver down.
Correct. He stares a receiver down. So if Jalen Hurts throws the ball more than I'll max him out at 17. If he throws the ball more than 17 times, the Eagles lose tomorrow.
Wow,
that's a low number. Although I kind of see the point there, because with Trevor Siemian, no Alvin Kamara, no Michael Thomas, the Saints offense isn't explosive at all. So the Eagles should have no reason to throw the ball heavily. And if they are in a situation where they have to, either they're getting stuffed on first and second down and they're in third and longs constantly, or they somehow fell behind 21 points to 2 guys who are not starting NFL quarterbacks, whichever one starts.
I think it's going to be more past them simply because of what you said there. I think it's not going to be because they go out to a quick lead, but because it's just not working out as well as we were hoping it to in the rushing game. I don't think Trevor Siemian, Marquez Callaway, Adam Troutman, Tony Jones, Mark Ingram are going to go out and start lighting up our defense, even though our defense, if not coached correctly, has shown to make anyone look like an MVP.
Yeah.
But I do think that their rush defense is very good, and it's going to be a slow start. I think the running game will pick up in the second half. We're going to wear them down and have more success later as the game wears on because of that rotation we have. We're going to be more fresh than they are, or our running backs are going to be more fresh in the defensive line. But I don't think there's a chance even, and I think it'll be a very successful offensive performance, but I don't think even in the most success that there's a chance that he throws less than 17 passes.
So you're saying guaranteed he's throwing the ball. Guaranteed he's throwing the ball more than 17 times tomorrow.
I mean, I can't guarantee it, but I would fully, if that was a line on DraftKings, FanDuel, whatever, I'd be putting the over heavy.
I probably would do the same. I think
the Lions. Against the Lions, he threw the ball 14 times.
Yeah.
Against the Chargers, against the Chargers, where they were playing from behind most of the game, he only threw the ball 21 times. Last week against the Broncos, he only threw the ball 18 times.
Yeah, and only 3 of those attempts came in the second half. So he threw 15 attempts in the first half.
That might be all it takes. They weren't winning by a lot going into halftime. They put that game away in the third quarter.
Yeah, hence
I'm looking for a similar situation out of the Philadelphia Eagles offense tomorrow. And now they've got Miles Sanders back, who is more electric than Jordan Howard, more electric than Boston Scott, and Kenny Gainwell has completely disappeared since week 4.
That's another thing that probably needs to be discussed is what the heck happened to Kenny Gainwell.
They stopped using him.
It's tough. It's tough to say. I think they just, look, he's obviously still showing a lot of flashes and signs that he's a very solid 4th round pick, but he's still a 4th round pick. Fifth, early 5th, 150th overall.
Yeah.
150th overall. Obviously 5th round pick, but he's still a 5th round pick. He probably got more usage than anyone expected early on. I know my boy Chris Maley over at 4th and John, he made a pretty little penny when he did a 2-leg parlay that included in the first week of the season that included Kenny Gainwell anytime scorer. And nobody really expected him to go out there and have the usage they did. And then when Miles Sanders went down, everybody's like, well, here's your new starter. I don't know really 100% why. Maybe it was that fumble that really, if you look at it, it wasn't a fumble. It was very close, but it wasn't. Maybe that was a reason why he started losing touches, but he's a 5th round pick. You're gonna see flashes. I think we're still very happy with what we're getting out of him.
So my take on it is, and I know Bill and I talked about this on a preseason episode, I am shocked that Kenny Gainwell did not start the year on the practice squad. I thought for sure with the depth they had at running back at that point in time coming into the season that he was drafted to be a practice squad running back this year. And I would have been perfectly okay with that. So the fact that he even made the opening day roster was a shock to me.
I think if they tried to practice squad him, he'd get picked up.
Yeah, I mean, looking back on it and the skill sets that he showed, probably, that's probably a pretty accurate statement. However, now they're just kind of handcuffing themselves because they have a guy that they could give the ball 7-8 times a game. He'd be him, Jordan Howard, and Miles Sanders could be, the perfect 3-man group. You give them each the ball 10 to 12 times a game and, call them the blue man group, really, but they just don't get the usage in, and I don't understand it. Maybe Miles Sanders needs to probably lead that group with like 15 touches himself, but inside the 20s, it's got to be Gainwell or Jordan Howard on the field. Their skill sets are completely different from Miles Sanders. As you've touched multiple times, he's a home run hitter. He works well between the 20s because he can give you that, the home run. He's just not effective enough inside the 20s, and he's not a very good pass catcher either. His first year in the league was kind of a smoke and mirrors where he was a very good receiver. Did not turn out to be the case his second year. Everybody blamed Carson Wentz, and now in his third year, we're kind of realizing that he still doesn't have very good hands, and that maybe the first year was kind of the fluke here. He's not going to be Christian McCaffrey.
How many drops he has this year?
How many?
0 drops this year. He's been shutting me up because I was saying the same exact thing you were, and I didn't even blame Carson Wentz last year. I said, man, this guy, he dropped 13.9% of his passes thrown his way, I believe, that were of catchable balls, thrown his direction, and that's a terrible number. That's a lot.
Yeah, no, especially when your throws are coming within like 5 yards.
Oh yeah, and they're just floated right to him. Rarely were you seeing those short range missiles thrown at him, and there was multiple times where you're just smacking the table because it was a key third down. It could have easily been a first down, and he just dropped it and all. And I went into this year thinking like, man, like he may be limited. We may see. That was kind of the reason why I thought Kenny Gainwell definitely would make the roster. Kenny Gainwell also got really hurt by the fact that he opted out of his senior season. He was, a second, third round graded corner running back before that. But I was like, Miles Sanders, he's a terrible pass catching back. What happened? His rookie year was so promising. And he shut me up real early this year where he's had no drops and has had a fair, a decent amount of targets. It's not like he's only getting
3.8 per game.
Yeah. And he's catching all 3.8 of them.
Well, no, so he's had 3.8 targets, but as you talked about, Wentz wasn't throwing him those short range missiles. Jalen Hurts still needs to figure out when he needs to put some heat on the ball, and not all of his targets are accurate, even within 5 yards. And and I talked about that.
Picks and chooses in the weirdest times. Throw it 100 miles per hour or float it. Like the Dallas Goedert should have been touchdown. Like, yeah, he still should have caught that, but he threw that thing freaking like 90 miles per hour right at him from 3 yards away.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's something that's got to get corrected. But that's not one of those things that I hold against Jalen Hurts. And there seems to be a huge comparison. We're going to, broaden the spectrum a little bit outside of just Philadelphia sports, all over the internet, about how Mac Jones gets compared to Tom Brady. And there was a side-by-side, Jake, you might have saw it, Bill, we talked about the other day, of Mac Jones's stats compared to Jalen Hurts. And the general media seems to think that Mac Jones is the next Tom Brady and Jalen Hurts is a scrub. What do you guys make of that comparison just by the numbers? And do you see something different in the actual play?
I've been extremely critical of Jalen Hurts. Jake, to his credit, has tried to reel me in several times. I've been extremely critical of Jalen Hurts. And for what it's worth, the first 8 games of this season, I was 100% right. And then they changed the game plan. And really, everything with Jalen Hurts is going to come down to how he's coached and what the game plan is in the scheme, which is why I go back to if he throws the ball more than 30 times, you're not going to win. Mac Jones, on the other hand, can throw the ball 30 times plus, and he gets better every single week. Mac Jones can't look. Again, Jalen Hurts is absolutely 100% still officially in his rookie season, and I understand that, and I get that. So what we're seeing is rookie growing pains. A lot of people are like, well, no, he played last year, but he played 4.5 games. I'm not really counting that as a rookie season, and most people won't. But what Mac Jones has done from week 1 to this past Thursday night game that I watched, he's a completely different quarterback in that quick amount of time. Jalen Hurts did not learn that fast. So I do believe that Mac Jones is the future of the New England Patriots. While I'm still questioning Jalen Hurts, I do 100% say that I was incorrect in saying that he's just a useless quarterback. Because he has been effective the last couple of weeks, and I've liked what I've seen out of Jalen Hurts. He's been extremely intelligent. He's making quicker decisions on the RPOs. He's not holding the ball, running around the offensive line, trying to make something happen, and then the linemen move downfield. He's getting better, but the rate to which Mac Jones got better versus Jalen Hurts, I would say if I'm drafting today 1-2, and they were the only 2 on the board, I'm taking Mac Jones.
Jake?
It's tough to say, and it's hard to argue with the rate of improvement. The only real thing I could say is the fact that I don't really believe that the 4.5 games he played last year, they have a role because any NFL experience is going to help you. But he was with a completely different coach, a number of different weapons, and a completely different offense. And so while the experience, no doubt, is invaluable, and I do kind of hate a lot of the callers into Philly sports radio. Be like, well, look, he's still a rookie until he plays 17 games. Like, he's a rookie. Like, no, he's not. But I do somewhat understand the argument just because it is a completely new offense. Jalen Hurts obviously is trending in the right direction, like you said, especially in the past 3 weeks. Mac Jones, in a 2-quarterback dynasty league I'm in, I had the 5th and 6th pick, and I went Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and in the offseason, I traded Justin Fields for 2 first-round picks. So I'm pretty happy. He's very talented. His decision-making is incredible for a rookie. It's really incredible for any level of quarterback right now. And it's hard to say you wouldn't want him because you do what I think is the most successful in the NFL is somebody that is primarily a pocket passer that, when needed, can make something happen with his legs and is not completely, devote of any kind of mobility. And he's obviously not a mobile quarterback, but he can roll out when called upon. He's not necessarily a Peyton Manning in that regard, where he is not going anywhere. They're both playing very well right now. I agree. Mac Jones has shown more consistency of solid play, but I don't think it's as far apart as what a lot of people are trying to say.
So I have a couple different takes on it. My opinion is that Mac Jones is playing better and has definitely shown more progression faster than Jalen Hurts. However, the caveat to that is he was put in position to succeed based on his skill sets faster than Jalen Hurts was.
I would agree.
As we watched the whole beginning of the year, Jalen Hurts threw the ball way too much. We've talked about that. We're beating a dead horse. Secondly, you touched on it a little bit, Bill. You said you trust Mac Jones a little bit more in a game where he had to throw the ball 30, 35, 40 times. Part of me almost hopes that we get into a close battle like that with the Saints, because I want to see if, Jalen Hurts being put in position to succeed the last few weeks, the way that they have run the ball, has boosted his confidence enough that maybe he can win a game where he has to throw the ball 40 times. And to compare him to Lamar Jackson, the reason the Ravens struggled so much in the playoffs is because in the playoffs, you got to throw the ball to win. You can't just Derrick Henry everybody, outside of maybe the Titans, where Ryan Tannehill threw like 18 passes in 2 playoff games. What was that, a couple of years ago? You can't really get away with that. And Lamar Jackson struggled in the playoffs because they were in positions where they'd be down by 3 points late, down by a score late, and he had to throw the ball, and he just couldn't because it did not fit his skill set. Now, if you watch Lamar Jackson a few years later, there are certain games, i.e. the Colts game, where they came back and won because Lamar utilized his skill sets and he utilized his arm, and they were able to win that game with him throwing the ball. However, this is Philadelphia. Nobody has the patience to wait a few years to see if Jalen Hurts can do that. Those are my takes on it. We'll see how that develops. We'll see if they give him a couple years. But
so the other thing I want to touch on with that is it's just crazy to me how negative Philadelphia media is on its players. So as you pointed out, the media is like, Mac Jones, quarterback of the future. That's wonderful. And for all reasons that we just gave, Jalen Hurts is improving a lot. But the Philadelphia media, the Philadelphia fan base, as you pointed out, Ryan, is like, I don't have a few years to wait. Like, I want to win now, forgetting that most of our team is really young. Like, the team is young. I know the defensive side of the ball is a little bit older, but the offensive side of the ball is really young. It's got a lot of promise, and if they are given the proper time to develop and the media isn't blasting them trying to get them out of town, they could be really good even by the end of this season going into next season, and then they can make adjustments for the defensive side of the ball. So it's just crazy to me how the Philadelphia media is always so negative on its players, and I know that's Philly. Like you expect that when you're drafted to Philly, when you go play in Philly, you just expect these types of things, but it's crazy, like the positive reinforcement that you get in other cities like New England versus Philadelphia to me.
Yeah. So I saw a different stat. Speaking of youth on this team, there's over 700 pounds on the left side of the offensive line now that Landon Dickerson has seemingly become the starting left guard. I have talked about it several times. I felt that they draft him to be the center of the future, that he was going to learn behind Kelsey for a year. Apparently he's learning right next to Kelsey, for probably the remainder of the season. Does he stay there past this year if Kelsey presumably retires, as we've talked about? And how does that affect the Philadelphia game plan going forward?
So we still have Brandon Brooks for another couple seasons, right?
Yeah, but he's a right guard.
Apologies, you're 100% correct. Look, in my opinion, if he's playing well there, if he's playing really well there at left guard, he and Mailata are doing a great job. I don't break him up. I leave him. If you need to go draft another center or beg Kelsey to play another season, like do what you got to do. But I think Dickerson should stay at left guard.
Jake?
I think if he continues to show improvement in pass protection, which he has more recently, that they're not going to really mix it up. Mind you, Isaac Seumalo, he was also kind of rumored to be the guy that was going to be taken up center. I believe Jason Kelsey was quoted. I don't know the exact quote, but he was like, "This guy's going to be a Pro Bowl center." Like when talking about Sayamalu.
Yeah,
so there's
last
still
season.
Yeah,
Sayamalu is still he's hurt right now, but there's still the opportunity for him to transition to center. And to touch really quick on Brandon Brooks, we don't have to talk too much into it, but I really don't expect him to be on the team next season.
Too much money. I think if they cut him next year, they end up saving millions and millions of dollars. And at this point, you've played most of the last 3 years without him. So I think he's dead weight at this point. He's less valuable than he is more. But to wrap this up, we're going to talk about the Eagles' schedule and how we feel about their playoff chances. So they play the Saints tomorrow, obviously in Philadelphia. They have the Giants on the road, the Jets on the road, Washington at home, Giants at home, Washington on the road, and then the ever fun Dallas Cowboys showing in Philadelphia on the last week of the season. Starting, with the Saints at home, what do you guys think the chances are that they can go on a run here and snag a wild card spot?
Jake. Yeah, Jake.
Well, you figure they played 10 games, so quick math will tell you there's 7 games remaining.
Yeah, what do you think they have to go to get a?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like 9-8 might get you in, but I think 10-7 will get you in. 9-8 is kind of a tight rope walk, but the only thing they really have in their favor with that is they would hold a ton of tiebreakers against a lot of teams that are vying for that spot. Like
if they run out the division except for the Dallas game, yeah, they'd be 4-2 in the division, and not a lot of other 9-8 teams could say that.
No, and they have won the head-to-head matchups against some of those teams that are have the possibility of going 9-8. The Falcons, the Broncos,
the Panthers.
Yeah, exactly. So especially with a win today, and with the hope of success in your division, they would own a lot of the wild card. So if they win 5 of the next 7 and finish going 9-8, it would probably get you in there. But also, even with how bad a team may look, it's difficult to sweep a division opponent. Like, it's difficult to sweep the football team. It's going to be difficult to sweep the Giants. It's difficult to say football team. It's such a stupid name. But look, they've got talent, man. Like, look, they suck, but at the same time, they have pieces. It's tough. You're like, no, Washington blows, and so does New York. But at the same time, it's never easy to win both of those games.
Yeah, and Washington, has some momentum coming off a victory against what a lot of people thought was a Super Bowl contender in Tampa Bay. Kind of beat him down pretty good.
Chase Young that he's out for the season, but benefits us. But
yeah,
never rooting for anybody to really get injured.
Well, they only have 3 other first-round picks on the defensive line. I think they'll be okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
So I've thought about.
You don't have Ryan Kerrigan though.
I don't think we do either.
So I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I'm looking at the schedule right now, and I'm playing it out in my head. They're going to lose one of these games against the division rivals, but it won't be the Cowboys. The Cowboys will be resting their players on the last week of the season, and the Eagles are going to be making a playoff push. So they're going to win that game.
I'll tell you, I'm going to stop right there. I'll tell you what, if the Eagles are in position to win a wild card game, if they beat Dallas ain't benching nobody.
And the tough thing with that is if Dallas continues to succeed and you have Green Bay lose a game that they probably shouldn't, they might be playing for that bye week.
Okay, and if that's the scenario, I still think the Eagles beat the Cowboys at home, especially if they're coming off of winning. Huh?
There it is.
Yeah, I'm being serious. So I've looked at it. I've thought a lot about it. They probably beat the Saints tomorrow. The Saints have a lot of injuries. Kamara's not playing. Michael Thomas is out for the season. Trevor Simeon's the quarterback right now.
The left and right tackle.
Yeah, the Eagles
and Armstrong out.
And then they follow it up next week by going to MetLife and probably putting it to the Giants. I'm saying so that you're talking out of the next 7 games. I've already got them winning 2. If they lose to the Jets, then I just give up on the entire season. So you got 3 right there. You go on a bye week. We don't know what Nick Sirianni can do on a bye week. You come back from the bye week. You play the Washington football team on a time, by the way, that is to be announced, which means the league also agrees with me that the Eagles probably win the next 3 games and are trying to push for a playoff spot. So you've got the Washington football team who Heineke's playing really well, but you take the one of the best defensive ends in football off the team, and they're a completely different team. So they probably at home beat the Washington football team. So 4 out of those 7 games, I've already got them winning, right? And and then you got another division rival against the Giants. It's tough to sweep, but they've been so injury prone this year that I can't see the Giants beating Philadelphia in Philly the second game. I just don't see it.
I mean, we've said that a lot, and they haven't won a single home game yet this year. So
I get it. I'm being cautiously optimistic, but I'm being extremely optimistic. They probably lose the January 2nd game to Washington at FedEx Field, but then they turn around, they come home against Dallas, trying to fight for a playoff spot, and they win.
So
6-1 in the next 7.
You guys touched on God. They better not lose to the Jets. I'll tell you what. I would trade losing to the Jets to guarantee 6 other wins easy because of what Jake and I talked about. They're an out-of-conference opponent. If you're battling for a wild card spot, the game literally means nothing. If they win the other 6 and that's the one they lose, so be it. But I would absolutely trade 6 W's for a loss to the Jets in a heartbeat. No question about it.
And I'm with you. Now, Ken, since you decided to say that I'm just being a fan, the team has looked really good the last couple of weeks. I know they destroyed the Lions, whatever, but as Jake pointed out, they played a really good game plan. Sirianni called a great game plan against a really good quarterback in Justin Herbert and the Chargers, and then they go up to the Broncos in Denver, who had just stomped the Cowboys the week before and gave it to the Broncos. So, yes, I'm being a fan, and I'm being cautiously optimistic. However, I'm extremely positive on the outlook of the team right now. So you can call me a fan all you want, but I'm not changing my mind. They go 6-1 here.
So is this game this week the most important game of the season?
Yes. They have to start it by winning tomorrow.
Yeah, because I wholeheartedly agree. Because as Jake mentioned, there's a bunch of other teams that could go 9-8, maybe 10-7. The Saints are absolutely one of them. And a head-to-head win, on that would
that's the first tiebreaker, right? Like they look at
head-to-head
matchup. Yeah,
if it's not, it should be.
The Falcons, you beat all of them in the tiebreaker.
But
correct. What's
also is equally important, I might be reaching here a little bit. The Saints play the Cowboys at home later down the stretch. Cowboys don't have the easiest closing schedule. They play Washington and New York, but they also play Kansas City tomorrow, which if the Chiefs figured out, to be the Chiefs like last week, the rest of the league is probably screwed. They play the Saints on the road. They play the Cardinals at home, and then they'll play, the Eagles, who, notoriously they've been splitting games for most, probably the last 15 years or so. So there's potential that the Cowboys, could slip up against a team like Vegas on the road, and who knows where they're at. They got dominated by Denver. Teams come out with that kind of game plan, and maybe we're talking about the Eagles chasing the division here on January 9th. Who knows? I doubt it.
That's a bit of a stretch.
I'm hoping for.
I think the Cowboys definitely get the division probably by week 16. 7 wins or 7 losses rather is not going to be getting the East. The Cowboys, and it pains me to say it because they are the Cowboys, but they are the better team in the division, especially right now.
Absolutely. But
which also is encouraging because of how terrible their defense was last year. Like if our offense continues to have good game plans, continues to develop, and we go out and get one of these free agent wide receivers, because this free agent wide receiver class is stacked.
Devontae,
you have the right draft with defense. I mean, the Cowboys drafted entirely defense. Like you can turn it around, and they're just kind of a model of how it can be done. I still hope that they lose the rest of their games, that they suck. But
well, I mean, yeah, they're the Cowboys.
But it shows that it's possible. Like if you go down 28 points in the first quarter, all that showed is that it's possible to score 4 touchdowns in a quarter. Why not us?
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen. That's why you play the games. I wouldn't go that far, Chris.
Nobody ever says this. I had to put it up there.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think we're all in agreement that this week's game is the most important game on the Eagles schedule. I'd even like to see them come out and win the opening coin toss and take the ball, like not defer. Go ahead and make that statement on the first drive. Tell the Saints that you mean business in your own house. And, this is
like the old Nick Foles Saints wildcard game. We won the toss and said, give us the ball.
Yeah, well, we should have won that game. We should have blown them out. That interception changed the whole complexion of that game.
Was it Kerry Williams booting the ball through the end zone on a perfect punt at like the half-yard line? Was that Kerry Williams? It
was.
He just all he had to do was touch it, and he just goes and kicks it 5 rows into the stands.
Yeah, and that interception on the pass to Zach Ertz on third down when we were driving, already up 14-0, kind of took the wind out of the sails. But yeah, I mean, God, I need to hydrate more throughout the day. So I mean, I definitely see potential for a wild card spot, and I predicted on our preseason show that they'd go 10-7. I think that's kind of their ceiling. Let's look a little bit ahead forward. If they do go 10-7, snag a wild card spot. Potentially the Colts winning the division. Miami sucks. They're going to suck the rest of the year. We don't know what happened to them.
Miami's schedule's really easy, and that's a darn shame.
Yeah. They had a gimme actually. What are we looking at for the draft? Do you think they go 3 defensive players? Do you think they go some offensive line? Do you think they even go Treylon Burks from Arkansas if he does happen to fall to their first pick that they have?
I think there's a 0% chance we take 3 players in the first round. I just don't think there's any chance that we hold all those picks. I would imagine we'll take 2 of them. And then that third pick is going to be, in my mind, probably traded for a first next year and whatever extra for this year. I really, really would be very surprised if they took 3 first-round picks in one draft. There's a multitude of different reasons. Howie's never really shown. I mean, we've never been in that situation, but I would be very surprised. It also puts, with the whole salary cap situation, 4 years from then, you're looking at 4 first-round players three first-round players coming up for extension at the same time. If you obviously want to hit on all 3 of them. So
I was about to say, what are the odds all 3 hit?
Yeah. No, exactly. I would imagine it's going to be 2 defensive players in the first round, and then trading that third pick, whether it's the first, second, or third pick that's there for a future first.
Do you think they potentially trade up to number 1 and get Kayvon Thibodeau?
I wouldn't be mad at it.
Not even a little bit.
Yeah, they could use 2 first-round picks and maybe a third down the line somewhere and move up. Get 2 first-round picks. One of them's probably a surefire defensive end, and the other one you probably go into the secondary. Hopefully get like a Derek Stingley Jr. or something like that, maybe to play outside.
Notre Dame, is it Kyle Hamilton?
Yeah, it's Kyle Hamilton. I'm a Notre Dame fan. Everybody knows that. He's the best safety in college football, period.
Oh, yeah.
We need a safety. It's such – people aren't talking about it nearly enough.
What would help the Eagles is he's out for the season. So he's not going to improve his draft stock any.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, 10-7, you have to assume Jalen Hurts plays really well, but it really all hinges on that.
I think it hinges more on Gannon than it does Jalen Hurts. I think they've kind of figured out how they can win on the offensive side of the ball.
I'm talking specifically draft. So we assume Jalen Hurts plays well enough to get us to 10-7, or he plays well enough and the defense gives it up and we only go 9-8 or 8-9 or whatever we end up going. But assuming Jalen Hurts plays well, you have to give him another season. I'm all in on Jalen Hurts if he plays well for the rest of the season. I know I've completely turned around. I said it earlier from where I was. And I mean, kudos to Jake, kudos to Ryan for like trying to reel me in constantly when I'm really ripping him apart.
And I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts guy.
I'm not a huge Jalen Hurts guy. Yeah. But I like what I've seen the last couple of weeks. But again, that goes back to scheming and how Nick Sirianni has figured out that if he has to throw the ball more than 20 times, they're in trouble.
Jalen Hurts is Jared Goff.
but I would not say that. I digress. Assuming Jalen Hurts plays well for the draft, I agree with Jake. We don't take 3 first-round picks there. We definitely get rid of those picks. I like the idea of giving 2 of them up and a third later in in the draft to go get Thibodeau. And I really like the kid Hamilton from Notre Dame. We could probably scoop him up in the second round if we're really lucky. Simply because, like you said, he's not playing this year, so his draft stock is going to be hurt. He's not helping; he's hurting by not playing. So I mean, ideally, if that's the scenario, you've got Ken said it on the comments. You got to go defense, and I agree with that. As I pointed out earlier, the offensive side of the football is really young, but the defensive side is aging. So you have to address it at some point. You've decided not to. The most recent pick that really panned out, I believe, is exactly. I can't even think of one. So you need to go get defense. And I like the idea of moving up to one and grab Thibodeau.
I think this all hinges on whether I think them drafting 3 players in the first round all hinges on how the offense finishes and what they plan to do in free agency in terms of wide receivers. Because as Jake has already pointed out, this wide receiver free agent class is stacked, led by Devontae Adams. What a nice addition that would be to have Devontae and Devontae on the team. But
if you take Devontae out of our wide receiver room, we have the worst wide receiver group in the NFL. We'd be worse than the Lions.
But I think if they don't do anything in free agency, I think they do keep all 3 first-round picks, and Treylon Burks has got to be one of them. Whether they just don't like Jalen Reagor, or they just don't use him, or they don't use him because they don't like him, whatever the case is, he's not going to work here in Philadelphia. He didn't work his rookie year under a completely different regimen. He's not going to work here. So they're going to move on from him. Maybe they'll make Quez Watkins an official starter. And if they can go out and get that third piece wide receiver, or if they draft somebody like Treylon Burks, that'd be a game changer. But like Jake said, at the same time, you don't want to end up paying, 3 guys who all pan out 5 years down the line, because, they'll get the options too. So it'd be 5 years instead of 4.
Yeah.
It's a difficult situation to navigate, but I think what they plan to do in free agency all depends on what they do. But I wouldn't mind getting Derek Stingley and Kyle Hamilton if it came down to that. Cornerback to replace Steven Nelson, and a safety to actually go ball hawk safety who can actually tackle people too.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to be all for us, guys. The Flyers are dropping the puck here soon, so I'm going to go check out that game. Got some things to do around the house for sure.
What's your score prediction?
My score prediction for Sunday?
Yeah.
27-14. No Alvin Kamara, no Michael Thomas, Simeon. Who do they have? This is like they're the Lions without Alvin Kamara. They're terrible.
I actually also have a blowout. I got 31-17.
I think they're just bad. What do you think?
But it
Jake?
starts tomorrow. Listen, like we said earlier, it starts tomorrow. They got to win tomorrow to do any of the stuff that we just discussed for the last 20 minutes. They have to start by winning tomorrow.
Yep.
I got 23-17.
A little bit closer of a game, but I think that'll do it here at BSing Sports. Go Birds! Like I said, I'm going to tune into the Flyers here. Jake, thanks for coming on. Sorry we couldn't have Joey. It was a little last second, but hopefully next time we do a collaboration, we're talking some Eagles football in the playoffs maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully.
But, Bill, I'll text you in about 3 minutes when we get off of here.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks, guys.